listening to Mando Radio. Welcome back to the show. We are here for another review discussion, checking out The Mandalorian. What a show it has been. We're halfway through the season.
Yeah,
Can you
that's
believe
true.
it?
No,
Halfway through the season. I don't want it to end.
it's going too fast.
Way too fast. Way too fast. I'm still shocked, even though there were like super clickbaity articles that were saying that this was going to be the longest episode ever of The Mandalorian. Longer by 1 minute does not a record make.
Yep.
That was not what I was hoping for. So that was mildly infuriating. Just mildly. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But yes, we're here. We're going to be discussing Season 1, Episode 4 of The Mandalorian, entitled Sanctuary. This is our Episode 10 of this podcast. And we're glad you could join us. Thank you so much for joining us. First, to kick things off, a little bit of news. So a very interesting article I came across was put out by Forbes, and they made an interesting comment. It's not really anything they're measuring, I don't think, but here's what they had to say. Forbes says, if you've been following Star Wars for the past 40 years, you'll know that its fans love endlessly debating its various major and minor entries, arguments which sometimes can turn quite hostile, and in the modern era of social media have even spilled over to do active harm to some of the directors and stars of the latest films. They then do a breakdown of everything that's happened ever since Empire, and then so I'm skipping ahead. Now we arrive at The Mandalorian, which after 4 episodes is technically the length of a feature film now, and will be essentially 2 of them, 2 feature films, by the time Season 1 has concluded. And I'm trying to see. It's basically just like an opinion piece by this person, but the main idea of what he's saying is that he says it has placated a fan base that is almost impossible to please, and that maybe they're working with less because of the way that they're writing it and budget constraints, trying not to eat the whole elephant at once is to their advantage, and allowing them to make a show that really works.
And it's not as ambitious as the movies. Like, it's not. It's
by design.
Focuses. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's working.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what this individual says.
Yeah, it's interesting because the URL for that says Star Wars fans aren't arguing about The Mandalorian.
Right. The biggest argument about The Mandalorian is whether or not Boba Fett and Jango Fett are Mandalorians.
Right.
And not about whether the character
what's going
is.
on.
Yeah. So that's nice.
Yep.
That's really good. There hasn't been that kind of response to Star Wars content since Return of the Jedi, I think. Yeah, so that's awesome. Alright, let's sound the alarm, shall we? Are you ready? I don't know how loud this is going to be. This is your spoiler alert. If you have not had an opportunity to sit down and enjoy Season 1, Episode 4 of The Mandalorian, entitled Sanctuary, hit the pause button, because podcasts don't have stop buttons anymore. That's a bygone relic of cassette tapes and CD players. Hit the pause button, hop on over to Disney Plus, and take a watch. Enjoy Episode 4, because from here on out we're going to be discussing major plot points and everything that happened in Episode 4 of The Mandalorian. Ready?
Yep.
Here we go. So we pick up with our hero in space. No, we don't. I lied. I like how they established this scene up front. So these things that look like shrimp are krill. They're krill farmers, and they are under attack in broad daylight. Of all the things to do, but they just set it up right off the bat. And I like how they put these two characters and I can't remember her name. Omera, I think.
Yeah, Omera is her name.
But they don't say it in the show.
No.
At no point in the episode do we actually get to know, like, say her name out loud. But in the subtitles it says Omera.
Right, but you do get her daughter's name.
Right. Which I can't recall, but yes, you're right.
Yep.
Do you remember what it is?
It starts with a W. I can't remember what it is.
It's something
Yep.
alien.
What's interesting, what I found interesting was these guys reminded me a lot of the Planet of the Apes movies. They're, yeah, just the way they look and everything, it just seemed like totally right out of Planet of the Apes.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of their, like the design cues of their outfits.
Yeah, like the leather in the outfits.
The leather caps.
The faces and stuff, and yeah.
Yep. Very, very true. And we don't know who this, as all the other raiders are advancing and pillaging, and thankfully that's all they're doing. They just seem to be pillaging. There's this one that just kind of walks up casually and shouts at them and doesn't do anything. Presumably he's the leader, he or she. I'm not trying to be sexist. It's an alien race. We can't tell.
Yep.
Presumably it's a he. But yeah, I like how they put Omera like right there in peril. So right away we're building that connection with that character. Like, oh my goodness, like what's gonna happen to her? I hope everything's okay. Because they're very close to being caught, and that guy's got a weapon right by them. So
yeah.
I thought that was
And as you
excellent.
said, it is interesting. Like all they're there for is the food. They just come and raid the krill.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Presumably, like they didn't take
They
the
don't
droid
show. No.
and the speeder.
Yeah.
And they don't. Yeah, they just haul away bags. They
Mhm.
don't seem to have anything else.
Yep.
But the other thing too that I really liked about the opening scene was that they hinted at the ATSD. A little bit of foreshadowing. Like they didn't actually show it. You hear it. There's a couple of large blaster bolts from a high angle that indicate that it's there, but they don't show it. So I really like how they did that. I thought that was really well done. That might have been budget constraints. Like that might not have been like their first choice, but it worked. It worked really well. And now after we show the main card, title card, then we pick up with our hero and the child jumping out of hyperspace. I think.
There's
No,
a
they
bit
were
of
just
back and
traveling.
forth where he tells the kid stop
Stop touching
fiddling.
stuff.
Yeah.
Don't touch that. Because it sounds like he's like opening a door or something. Because
Yeah.
they start to have turbulence.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cute. Yeah. Apparently there's going to be a whole ton of merchandise for the child coming soon. Very, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
So then he decides to pick this planet where we were just seeing people, the farmers getting raided. And he says that there's no spaceport. There's no population density. Just very
It's a backwater.
backwater, like
Yeah.
swampy kind of place.
Yeah.
It's like Dagobah, but not as inhospitable.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more friendly for humanoids. And then right away, he goes and finds the nearest place to get some food after trying to tell the child to stay and he doesn't listen. And there we go. This cantina reminds me more of what you would expect at Galaxy's Edge. Like the one where Grief Karga hangs out is very seedy.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot cleaner, so this is
Yeah.
kind of like what Olga's cantina at Galaxy's Edge is going to feel like, I think.
Right.
A little more G-rated. A little friendlier. Oh, and it was nice, we passed it already in our recap on the screen. As the Mandalorian walks down the ramp and then the child starts following him, you actually see him doing that little, like the first time we've seen him walk quickly.
Yeah.
For just a brief moment.
That's true. Yeah.
And that's when he really looks like Yoda. Because when Yoda walks quickly, like that was the first time that we saw that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of neat. Because now he's just shuffling along. So this is fan service for fans of the Clone Wars. No, Rebels? I can't remember. That's a loath cat.
Okay. It looks like a Cheshire cat from Alice in Wonderland.
It
but-
does. It does.
Okay.
but it's from one of the two. My apologies. It's from one of the two animated series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it would be from Rebels, because a lot of what happens in Rebels happens on Lothal,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a Loth cat,
Oh, okay.
so presumably that's where that comes from.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. Yeah, in the cartoon though, the eyes change shape, but you want to make it look like a real creature, you can't do that. So,
Right.
at long last, we are introduced to Cara Dune. It was so funny at this scene when the server comes and asks him what he wants, and he orders bone broth for the child. My wife had just made bone broth earlier last week. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that's so weird. Why would he?
Yeah.
We just made that, and why would he order that? I've
Yeah.
never had bone broth before, so that was a little bit of. And then he starts asking, like, so what's her business here? And then the server's like, her business? There's nothing here.
Yeah.
She's just hanging out.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done. And then she just disappears, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the time she moves, then she's gone.
Yeah. Which is that's a good move. I like it when they do that, because that's the same kind of thing that they did with the Mithril in the first episode, where he's looking at the people encased in carbonite, and then he's all of a sudden just right behind him.
Mm-hmm.
The same kind of thing where you couldn't really get away with that in reality, but because you're cutting back and forth, you can do that in a film. I thought that was really neat that they made her disappear. Oh, and then we get to see a new piece of tech, sort of. We'll talk about it more. Right there, that's it. His helmet is equipped with the ability to see the most recent footsteps.
Would that be infrared, I'm assuming, or not? I don't know. Like,
Infrared.
would there be a heat signal? Maybe not. But yeah.
In this
Hard to
instance, yes. But then in the other instance in the show where they
Yeah.
use that same technology, no.
No.
Because it's been who knows how many days prior.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So we'll cover that in our tech review. I'm just making myself a quick note. So that might be one of those examples where the technology gets invented to serve the story.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, because this is not something that we've ever seen before that I can recall. Maybe it's been in the animated shows, I'm not sure.
Right.
But it could be one of those situations where, okay, the story calls for this. How do we do this?
Mhm.
Well, let's just invent
Right.
a piece of tech that does that.
Yeah.
Which in this case was well done and
Yeah.
clever and interesting, and they scuffle. So, what did you think of this fight? Because there were people that liked it and there were people that were complaining about it online.
Yeah. What were the complaints?
Right there.
Oh, okay.
So not only is Cara Dune fighting just bare knuckle, but she's punching him in the face, and he's like going down.
Right.
Like he's really getting hurt.
Yeah.
And people took exception to the fact that he's wearing a steel helmet.
But if you go back just for a sec, just go back. Okay, watch. Go.
Uh-huh.
I mean, when she hits him, it looks to me like she's using her forearm, and doesn't she have metal on her forearm? That's what I mean, I didn't think, oh, she punched him. I thought literally that she was using the metal on her forearm to, do that to him. That's what it looked like to me.
That would make sense. Using bracers, because he's got them too.
Yeah, he's got them too, right? Like, I mean, she has some armor, not as much as he does. But
Yeah.
that's
And-
the impression.
And when he punches her as well, the flaps that he's wearing don't go to his knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has leather gloves on,
Yeah.
but that's it. His knuckles don't have any other reinforcement to them when he's
Yeah.
striking her. So I didn't have any issues with the fight. The first time I saw it, my disbelief was suspended, and I just thought it was super cool.
Mm-hmm. I mean, all they're highlighting is that she's pretty tough. I mean, it's not like, an easy fight for him, and then they both draw at the same time, right? But this is what I'm referring to, right? Because of
Yep.
the armor on her forearm, I was assuming that that's what she was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I was fine with it. I thought it was great. That was well done. And then the child, the server is supposed to be watching the child, but there he is, just chilling, drinking his bone broth.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. You just hear him slurping.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
what you hear.
That's so good. So then they hang out with each other, get to know each other. Ex-rebel shock trooper, cleaning up Imperial warlords and things like that. But she's very cryptic about why she's there. She doesn't answer the question. She dodges the question.
Mm-hmm.
Early retirement is what she says. What does that mean? Why would she be worried about someone having a bounty fob on her, tracking fob? What did she do that would earn that?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Empire is gone. The Empire is not hunting her, presumably.
Right.
So why? Who is she running from? Is she running from the rebels?
Somebody is.
So there's more to this character. It's good. I like how they made it open-ended. So they determine that she was there first, so they're gonna have to leave. But now here, as the Mandalorian's packing up, he's approached by these two fine, upstanding gentlemen that say that they need his help. They heard he was a Mandalorian, and they wanted his help.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that these individuals are farmers. They don't have a lot of access to the outside universe, but they know about Mandalorians. The reputation of Mandalore precedes our hero. And they're probably not getting like news. They're probably not attached to the HoloNet, getting updates of what's going on in the galaxy. So that's significant, and that ties into what happens at the end of the episode. Because not only does word travel fast on a small planet like this, it will also leave the planet as well, which is worth noting. So they talk, and then the Mandalorian realizes, oh, these guys have a farm like a day's journey away. That's actually a good place to hide. Right. But he leaves his starship. Did the experience with the Jawas not like? Yeah. Like that's the only thing. Like at the end of the episode, I'm like, something's gonna be wrong with his ship again. We're gonna have a whole episode about him fixing his ship or something. But hopefully not. We'll see. So he goes back with them. He goes back with them, but first he takes their credits and goes and picks up Kara, which we see is just camping out under the open sky. She doesn't seem to have any kind of anything. I think I missed it. But yeah, he goes and throws the credits down, and she's just beside a fire. Like, she doesn't have any lodging, a tent, no nothing. She's just out in the woods. So that's also tells you something too. If she's even mobile on this planet, or if she just has no resources. Yeah. Something's going on with this character. Is she to be trusted? Do we trust her? Like in this episode we do, because she seems to be behaving the way that we'd expect. But oh yeah, that's right. This is the point where she says the daughter's name. Right. I'm not going to put the subtitles on. So she puts. So this is a great scene. This is part of what we learn about the Mandalorian and why he never takes his helmet off, sort of. Or at least we find out how long he's been wearing it like this. She asks him when the last time is that he took his bucket off. He says yesterday. But then she asks him when was the last time he took it off in front of other people. And he explains that it's been since he wasn't much older than the children running around outside, her daughter included. Right. So the process in his tribe or his clan of Mandalorians is once you become a warrior of some kind, we're not sure their tier, their system, you are committed. You have to leave the helmet on in public anytime you're going to be doing something. So Interesting. So he's probably been wearing his helmet for like 20 years.
Right. The other thing that's interesting is it's probably not long after that flashback scene where we see him, get placed in that little pod thing, and then presumably his parents are killed, and then they open, and then that, the droid is there. Because that's pretty much at that age, right?
That's right. Yep. About 10 years old or so. Yeah, so that's probably the foundlings. We see some of them running around in that little tunnel, right? So now we'll fast forward. So then we get to, they're going in, the Mandalorian and Kara are scouting where they're gonna stop these raiders. And this is where we see that technology at work again.
Right.
He's able to see the footprints of all of the raiders, but he's also able to identify the damage to the trees. And he says something big came through here.
Right.
And that's when they go looking for footprints, because something big is going to have big footprints. And that's when they discover the bad guys have a tank, sort of. Yeah, ATST footprints. So the Raiders have an ATST. What's the movie where he says they've got a tank? Is there a movie? I can't remember now. My memory is getting it all muddled up. Oh, and then I like what he says when they go back to the village. Yeah, bad news. You're gonna have to move.
Yeah.
You can't live here anymore.
Right.
That was funny. What are you talking about? We've been here for generations. And then they volunteered to fight. I actually didn't expect that to be such a logical conclusion for them. The villagers, like I think it was in one of the trailers we see Kara and they're training with the sticks.
Right.
I think we saw that.
Yeah.
But I don't recall. Oh, is there 2 moons? Looks like there's 2 moons on this planet.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't recall. But I was just surprised that they'd be so willing to risk their lives, right? Like the Raiders don't appear to be killing them when they were raided earlier in the episode. But they're willing to risk their lives to try to fight them off.
Right.
For their welfare, to protect their
Well, I'm assuming that's their primary food source too, or protein anyway.
It's probably their primary economic driver, period.
Yeah.
Like that's this whole village is that's all they do. Unless they're selling like whatever that wicker looking stuff is. Presumably they're not logging.
Yeah.
Like they have the skills to be able to do that, but they're not doing that as their primary export or trade. Okay. So she says that she knows how to shoot.
She's the only one that knows how to shoot.
Okay, but that's a good joke, because the weapon that she knows how to shoot is one of the better weapons.
It's not just a pistol.
No. If you play Star Wars Battlefront, she's not shooting any just like blaster. She's shooting the Relby V10 mortar gun. It's supposed to be a grenade launcher, but it can also be a blaster rifle, which was actually the weapon favored by Bosk. So she's a crack shot with the same. There it is, right there.
Oh, okay.
The same weapon that Bosk favors, the bounty hunter. This one here.
Right.
The Relby V10. So that's pretty cool to see. Her able to competently wield such a weapon.
And then everyone else has got sticks.
Sharp, pointy sticks.
Yep.
I like the guy that's got the wrong end.
Yeah, that was cute.
Pointing forward.
And then also the target practice, the only one that hits anything is her.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah. No, I liked it. The training was a good montage. That was well done. Very well done. And now the action begins. So they're going out, they're going to go cause a ruckus. The plan is to disrupt the Raiders enough, ruin their evening enough that they come chasing after them and they bring their ATST. So they infiltrate quietly, take out the outer guards, they go inside. This presumably is the beverage that they were drinking outside.
Looks like it, yeah.
But if it's being brewed in these big vats, Presumably it's not safe because it's like either super cold or super hot. Because when Kara sticks one of them in, it seems to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
He's screaming, so I thought this was really cool. It's nice that they added the extra tension that
they're running out of time.
Grenade's gonna go off, so
Yep.
get out of there. And when we saw him use one of those in the previous episode, when he breaks the child out,
Mhm.
we didn't get to see the detail of the little LEDs inside.
No, that's right.
So now we got to see them. So people that create these for cosplay will be able to get a little more intricate detail into them. It'd be fun to make those. So then they get out
Just in time.
just as it blows up, and then the ATST. Okay.
He's chasing them down.
Okay, so this is what we had mentioned for a brief moment before the episode started. As the ATST is getting defeated, so everyone does their job, right? The ATST stops at the edge. It doesn't fall for the trap. It doesn't go in far enough. So Kara has to bait it out by going closer and trying to use the pulse rifle to get the ATST to fall in. Everyone else is doing their job. They're shooting the raiders. They're trying to stab them with their sticks. But then as it goes down, oh, it's not going to load now. As it goes down, we get a really good view into the cockpit. And if it's an oversight, it's unfortunate. If it's by design, we don't know. It doesn't look like there's anybody inside.
Right.
Did you notice that?
Yeah. That's why I was wondering too, because these raiders don't appear to be a particularly advanced group of folks, and you kind of think, so who's driving this thing? You wouldn't think it would be them. And that's why when you look, through the porthole in the window, you're thinking, okay, so who actually is driving this?
Yeah. Who's manning the controls?
Yeah.
Because even in Return of the Jedi, the Imperial drivers, like, although they couldn't look through the windows, you could see like the top of their heads.
Yeah, you could see their helmets or whatever. Yeah.
But in this one, as it's falling in
Mhm.
particular, you get a
Mhm.
really good view inside of it.
Well, when they take a couple of shots at it as well, you can see in the window, and right.
But like right there should be someone right here
Mm-hmm.
because it's down on an angle far enough.
Yeah.
And then the Mandalorian just hops up and uses his last grenade and finishes it off. Just for good measure.
Right.
Just so that it doesn't get repaired. Which is a good idea. Like, presumably someone will be scrambling to get out.
Exactly. You see him throw that in, and you think there's no response. So
Yeah.
is anybody in there? And
But-
then you see the defenders like dispatching some of the raiders.
Because they were distracted by their
Mhm.
big guns going down. And then they did it. They saved the day. Happy day. But then what they don't tell us until the Mandalorian and Kara are talking is a few weeks go by. Right? No, that's cute. He tries to eat a frog because he likes them from
Yeah.
the second
Yeah.
episode, and all the kids are grossed
Kids
out.
are, oh, nasty.
That's cute. Yeah, here. I think when he's talking to Kara here, he says word gets around, like there's gonna be
There'll be a
rumors,
response. Yeah.
right? Like I mentioned that they probably don't have HoloNet, but the word will have gotten out that they defeated an ATST, especially this small village. Like
Mhm.
they're
Of
gonna have to
farmers.
dismantle that piece of scrap metal,
Mhm.
and they probably sold it.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's probably like a Watto, like a scrap person around that they would have to sell that metal to get rid of it just to get it off their farm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then of course, the fact that there's a Mandalorian on the planet is going to get around as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there, it doesn't take long for a bounty hunter to put two and two together if they've got their ear to the ground, because then we find in the episode, I think I passed it, a Kubaz, same species as Garandan, the character from A New Hope that
Mhm.
that tells the stormtroopers what docking bay Obi-Wan and Luke, and so there is a new threat. And just as he's about to leave the child behind to go off on his next adventures, try to meet up with his tribe, this bounty hunter tries to take a shot at the child, and of course, he's dispatched by Kara. Thank goodness. They did the same thing again, too. This is the same suspense that they built when IG-11 points his blaster at the child,
right.
And then you just hear the shot go off. You're like, What happened?
Yeah.
Who got... And then it wasn't. It was Kara taking out the bounty hunter.
Right.
Really, really well done. He just drops.
Yeah.
He's done. He's done. He's gone. Which was awesome. She doesn't have to say anything. She just stands there. She knows the Mandalorian's coming. And then he decides, okay, they're tracking the kid. It's time to get out of here.
And that also means that he can't leave the kid behind.
That's right, because the kid will get hunted down.
Mm-hmm.
So now here's an interesting decision that he makes, and this is part of my concern about him leaving his ship, because it's been a few weeks now. Has he gone back to check on his ship? Does he know what condition his ship is in? He declines an escort. She could go with him. The sled that has all of his supplies and materials and things is driven by a droid. She could just hop on, go for the ride, and come back. No big deal. But if the bounty hunter found him in the woods, was he alone? Did he booby trap the Mandalorian's ship, maybe, before he did that? We don't know, right? There's lots of... It's very risky, him just riding off into the sunset on this droid-powered sled.
Mm-hmm.
But we get a really, really nice look, presumably at the puppet version, the animatronic version of the child as they ride away.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way you can tell between the animatronic and the CGI is the blinking. I think the animatronic one doesn't blink all the way, whereas the CGI one, it does. Like when it blinks, the eyes close all the way. I think. It's just a guess.
Yeah.
A hunch, if you will.
Yep.
All right. So, your review of Sanctuary of Episode 4. What did you think?
I thought it was good. I think, as well as we discussed, it's the same kind of story as we would have seen in the Seven Samurai, Kurosawa's film back from '54, where there's some hired guns or some gunslingers that are going to protect a village of, in this case, farmers. And so, the same thing from the Magnificent Seven movie. So, I thought it was an interesting storyline. And you do wonder about the Mandalorian's relationship with the kid, because once again, he's looking for an opportunity to leave the kid behind, and then again when he realizes that the bounty hunters are tracking it, that the Garindian had the fob, he realizes, I can't leave the guy here now. So I don't know, it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, and it might be a spoiler, but we won't get confirmation for a while yet, at least not from this episode. Jon Favreau posted on his Instagram a small clip of the child just looking side to side, but where the child was sitting, it was in some kind of a carrier thing that we haven't seen yet, and we know that he's on set filming season 2 right now.
Oh, okay.
So this challenge of trying to keep the child safe and raising the child, presumably, supposedly, continues all the way into season 2.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Except that we got that video from Jon Favreau on his Instagram, so go check that out. So, yep, I loved this episode. I thought it was really well done. I know people love episode 3 the most right now. I would put this, in my opinion, on par with episode 3. I wouldn't put one above the other, because I just think this one is so well done. Such a good story, introducing Kara and just more questions. I loved that they made up technology to solve a problem in the story that that was clever and that made sense. It was just, I just thought it was great. I was able to suspend my disbelief and really enjoy it, which was awesome.
I think the other thing that's interesting is in this episode, the Mandalorian actually does take his helmet off. You don't see his face, but when he's eating inside his hut, he does take his helmet off.
Yeah, it's almost like they knew that was going to be something that people were talking about.
Yeah.
So they put that in on purpose just to get us to get some closure on that subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they would do that on purpose because...
Well, she asked about it too.
But I mean, like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, like they're cognizant enough to plan ahead, to put those things in there to get you talking about it and then put closure on it as the story progresses. So I give them credit because I think they know what they're doing.
Yep.
So yeah, 2 thumbs up for me. Loved it. I don't think we're gonna have a bad episode. If we're this far in, like, it's just so good.
Right.
Like they're like, yeah. Still, my biggest criticism is that the episodes are too short.
Right.
That's it.
And you also wonder, like, who will they circle back for again? Like, will we see IG-11 again? Will we see the Ugnaught again because the Mandalorian owes him? So you kind of wonder, in terms of the story arc, where will some of these other characters show up again? Like, even here at the end of this episode, it almost looks like he's going to leave and Cara Dune is staying on the planet. So, you know, what will happen in the long term?
But from the trailers, we know that they do cross paths again. We don't know when. It could be next week, this Friday. It could be next Friday. But from the trailers that we've seen, Cara interacts with IG-11. We haven't seen that yet.
We haven't seen him back yet.
IG-11's gonna come back. Cara Dune
is presumably
gonna come back because we saw it in the trailers.
Yep.
And usually, when the budget is as tight as this is for what they're giving us, they're not going to go out of their way to shoot scenes like that just to throw away for a trailer.
Right.
They would do that to preserve plot points for the big blockbuster films. They probably don't have the budget to burn on that for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, let's move on. Let's go to our Star Wars merch. And because we saw it in this episode, let's talk about it. Here it is. The Star Wars Vintage Collection Mandalorian AT-ST Raider vehicle with figure. So presumably Hasbro received documents from Lucasfilm that told them that this was going to have a pilot because the toy comes with a pilot.
And he's supposed to be the pilot?
Presumably.
Okay.
He fits. This is the same AT-ST mold that they used for from the Black Series. The Black Series, they did a 3 3/4 AT-ST, which has some of the best detail on of a toy sculpt that they've done. However, the big challenge with this toy that I've seen in multiple reviews is that it doesn't stand up really easily.
Oh, is that
It's hard to make it stand up because the legs are super articulated for lots of posing, but then all of that articulation with the weight on top, it doesn't stand up on its own. But I think there's screws in each of the joints, so I wonder if maybe you just a screwdriver and tighten it up.
Because I know that the old one was easy to stand up, in the one from the original trilogy.
But it only had 2 points of articulation
in the legs.
leg.
Yeah, exactly.
This one has like the ankle, the I guess there's 2 ankles, a knee, and then up here.
Right.
Yeah, there's lots more. I saw a picture of someone that's like so happy that they got theirs, where it's like crouched down, like the legs are.
Oh, okay. Presumably so that they can
stand up.
get it to stand up.
So, there you go. That's available everywhere toys are sold. The Star Wars Vintage Collection is the 3 3/4 premium toys that Hasbro is putting out right now. And actually, it's the only 3 3/4 toys that Hasbro is putting out right now. They're not doing any other 5 points of articulation basic figures going forward. They have no plans for them right now. So if you've been a diehard 3 3/4 inch figure fan, this is it. The Vintage Collection.
Right.
So after did they do The Last Jedi? After The Last Jedi, they stopped doing basic 5 point articulation figures. So there you go. There's some merch for you. Star Wars merchandise. So let's go back to talk about the tech review. I don't think I'm going to find it fast enough. Oh, wait, yeah, there we go. That's good. Let's just go with this. Let's talk about the helmet. So, in Empire Strikes Back, was it Empire? Yeah, it must have been Empire. We see that Boba Fett's helmet has a rangefinder on it. So that's that little antenna thing that he brings down. And
Right.
It's like a rangefinder. So, a Mandalorian helmet is as unique as the person wearing it. What technology it has and functions that it does is up to the wearer to get them incorporated or designed and things like that. Presumably the armorer has all of the designs at her disposal to be able to incorporate them into the helmet. Thus far we've seen that he has a flashlight built into his helmet and his experience with the Mudhorn. We've seen that it does, well, I forget what the other one was. There was another thing where he touches the helmet for something. Oh yeah, right.
He hears the conversation happening inside the building.
That's right. So it's got some kind of, I don't know how you do that. This is where suspending your disbelief, I'm struggling on this one.
Mm-hmm.
When he's got his scope and
Yeah.
he's looking at the building and he can see Dr. Pershing and the client discussing the child.
It's like he can see their
touches his
heat
helmet.
signature, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he can hear what they're saying too.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering if that's working through
the scope.
the scope as opposed to just his helmet. I don't know.
But the scope is literally just a tube.
Yeah.
There's no microphone that we can see on it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But now we have this new function where he can see footprints that have just happened somehow,
Mm-hmm.
and the damage to the trees of the ATST. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what else his helmet can do.
Right.
We haven't seen him use it as a heads-up display yet.
Mm-hmm.
Target tracking. We don't know what he sees when he's flying his starship.
Right.
Presumably it's not just like a piece of glass. Like his ship is old, but it still has hyperdrive capabilities. So there's
Mhm.
got to be
Other
readouts and
things.
displays. And
Yeah.
all we've seen is his star chart. Maybe everything else is incorporated in the helmet. So
Mhm.
very, very cool. Definitely want to get one. Do you want one?
Yeah, sure.
Of course. Why not? You can get the files. They're easily available. Just Google it, and then you can slice them up and print them on a 3D printer. And then all you have to do is go to a supply store that sells welding visors.
Oh, right, the welding glass.
And that's when you cut that out in a T shape and glue it to the inside.
Yeah.
And there you go. You paint it up.
Yep. There you go. Ready for.
Ready for your cosplay needs.
Yep.
So I intend to do that. I'm planning on doing that. I have the files already.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of slicing them up to fit on a printer.
Mm-hmm.
Because the printers that would be able to do it all in one shot are going to be very large, industrial,
Yeah.
very expensive.
Very expensive. Not like the ones at the library.
Yeah, the
You have to
one.
have it pieces.
Yeah, the
Have it
one.
pieces.
But even the one at the library, there's a version of the helmet that's already cut into 8 pieces. It's not big enough.
Right.
I'd have to take each of those 8 pieces, cut them
And
in
slice
half,
them. Yeah.
and then print. So now I've
Yeah.
got 16 pieces instead of just 8. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a challenge, but
Yeah.
I'll get it done. I will get it done. All right. I think that's all I had for today. You got anything else for us?
Nope. I think that was good. You covered what we wanted to cover.
Awesome. All right. Yet again, we're looking forward to this Friday. Please reach out to us on the socials. If you're within the sound of my voice, if you're a fan of The Mandalorian, let us know what you thought. Did you like episode number 3 more than episode number 4? Or would you put them on a par with each other? Or maybe you're such a huge Akira Kurosawa film fan. Try to put the 2 words together and
Yep.
I stopped myself. Maybe you like this one more than episode 3.
Yeah.
We'd like to hear from you. You can get us on Twitter at Mando Radio Pod. You can get us on Instagram at Mando Radio, Facebook.com/Mando Radio Podcast, or you can send us an email, Vern at mandoradio.com, or you can send one to Pops at mandoradio.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
We hope you'll join us next time.
The Force will be with you.
Always.
I have spoken.